Anyone have anything they would like to add to the proposed agenda for discussion this evening? Amy, do you have anything?
I've got 3 things to add.
Okay. Shoot. Already?
One is whether or not to move ahead with filing the notice of intent for the invasive species control over at Magog, the orchard parcel.
Okay.
Haven't heard from Concord.
Yep.
The IME beverage, aka very fine rail siding, may have they have a change in a question of whether or not, to what level it rises, and ditto with the Point and their second hotel.
When you say very fine, you mean the
IME
new company.
beverage.
We know
Yeah.
that?
They're going to second hotel, yeah.
Okay.
We didn't
Okay,
know
so
that originally.
Yep.
Oh,
All right,
that
so
I
let's-
don't know. I wasn't
Let's
here.
go ahead and start
Yeah.
with the minutes. Does anybody have any omissions or corrections? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, just typo grammaticals, nothing that impacts
Wow,
anything.
crazy, huh?
I have similar, I just have editing.
Okay, yeah, mine was just wordsmithing.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to submit mine.
Thank you so
And
much.
Anna's. Anybody would like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Anybody want
I'll
to
second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay. Let's go ahead and just start with administrative discussions. Little Free Library at Oak Hill. Is that a book nook?
That's you.
Come on up.
I even have a picture there.
Yep.
You don't have one.
Come on up. So you are
So-
on, and if you want to come up and just
cute.
introduce
Happily.
yourself, that would be great.
I
Love it.
Stop.
Yeah.
All right. So,
I have seen some, whenever I see them now, I just take pictures and just file them away. We do them, so, yeah.
my name is Gabrielle Eidenwild. I'm at 123 Harvard Road, and I love literature. I love books. I love the sense of community and things that they foster. Wanted to have a little free library on our property, but it has become clear that I'm on 123 Harvard Road, which is right across the street from the Oak Hill Fire Road access. I think it's Fire Road number 4, if I'm.
I don't know the
Yeah.
numbers, but yeah.
But it's so it's not on the Oak Hill side; it's on the Harvard side. And I thought it would be an ideal place to have a little free library because sometimes it's a little far to get away to the regular library and yada yada yada. But the main thing that stopped me from putting one on my property is that particular intersection that particular corner is not pedestrian friendly, and I didn't want that just seemed a silly thing. So the Little Free Library
Just pulling up a map.
.org, their foundation, they recommend that if there's another place that might be suitable, that locally, to partner with your local conservation trust or your parks organizations and figure out a suitable location. If a citizen of the community is willing to donate and build and steward it, to try and figure out a more legitimate, more safe place that would work for the community as well. I'm literally just here as a can we do this?
Mhm.
The answer might be no. That would be sad. But if the answer is yes, I'd love to know what we can do and how we can do this. And I'm not expecting it to happen overnight, but what?
Do you have thoughts on a location?
I would love to see it at Sawyer, the Sawyer parking lot. The reason being, there are a lot of families out in that neighborhood. It already has parking. It's already a place that is relatively sheltered from the street, but you can still see it because I saw the lovely board that's on the trust has put up.
The kiosk.
In the kiosk, yeah. So there's already road visibility there. And it's not as congested as the Oak Hill parking lot.
Mhm.
That is
Right.
pretty small.
Pull off.
where you
Yeah.
pull off.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The actual, or the one right across the street from my house, which is just 2 cars and that's it.
Right.
And I wouldn't mind people being on my property. Again, it was just a matter of safety. So,
Right.
I
and
just mapped it. It looks like you're on a curve
Yeah.
on Harvard Road.
Yeah.
That's, from a traffic pullover standpoint, it's not
It's-
ideal.
not ideal at all.
Yeah, the commissioners have thoughts on, I don't believe we have any on any of the town property so far. So.
How about
thoughts?
the
Castle in the Trees.
the beach?
There's one in Castle
There
in the
is,
Trees.
okay.
Yeah.
Is there one at the
People read
beach?
No, how about a little library at the beach?
Could start a trend.
Oh,
Part of the reason I wanted to put it on.
There's one over on Green Needles.
Others,
Or,
Oh,
I don't know if it's
on
actually
town-
Green Needles, but in that neighborhood.
And Hartwell too.
but on town property specifically.
How many are there in
Shaker,
town?
Shaker Lane and
Sounds like there's at least 3.
Castle in the Trees have one.
And the community farm has one.
The community farm. has one. But
And
that's Neff
there's
land, I think.
one.
Hmm.
I want to say up by Spectacle Pond, but I'm not 100%
Yeah, on
sure.
Hartwell.
On Hartwell, you're
Yep.
right. The reason I wanted to propose Sawyer Lane is because it is something that is easy for me to get to. I mean, I'm just, as the initial steward, I'm being selfish here, totally cop to
No,
that.
it's reasonable to put it close to where you are.
Um,
If you're the steward of it,
and
I
it's-
think
I
and
that's.
want to be able to see it. We always have concern of vandalism and things like
Absolutely.
that. So it would have to be something that you would have an agreement with the commission that if something were to go wrong, we would assess and see if it's, if it can still stay there and be viable as well.
Absolutely.
Um,
I had ideas too of going like slightly high tech, making sure that it's like solar powered and lit on the inside. Also, like doing
No
like-
lighting over there.
No lighting over there. Perfect. Yay! Even
Yeah.
better. That's
Uh,
Yeah, I don't
because
think you have
we
to.
wildlife wise, we want to make
Yeah.
sure we're trying to do less with lighting.
fantastic, and that makes me so happy.
And,
And,
and actually, the guy across the
None
street
of the
would have an
others are-
architect.
None of the others are lit anyway.
and that's fine.
Yeah.
No, that was just
So,
I'm just
yeah.
brainstorming here. So thank you for that. And I'd love to be on if you have a task force about light pollution. That's like right up my alley in my research. Anyway,
So we typically, when we have, this sounds similar to what we have with the Boy Scouts, we just ask for sketches and location,
okay.
Yeah.
material that would be used, timeline, basically like a construction sequence and what the intent is.
You know, I was kind of picturing next to the kiosk, but touch base back again with Rick Finley.
Okay.
oh, and Bill Brown, definitely. Do you know
Yes,
Bill?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's who she started with.
Oh, okay.
Was Rick and Bill and stuff. And
So, just thoughts on the commission, are we letting her go ahead with support to
Well,
continue to continue the dialogue?
Yeah, but
This is
what I would
not-
what I would like to see is conservation-oriented books, as opposed to, you know, Diane Steele or whatever. Some romance novel.
Well, it could be about
Who are they?
tracking
Who are they?
Danielle,
tracks
admit it, you read them.
meetings.
Oh, I might. I'm not saying.
Nothing wrong
but,
with that.
But you know what I mean? If we're going to have it on a property, I think it should be restricted to conservation books, whether it be wildlife, books of trees,
About children's books that
And
talk about
children's
nature and
children's
animals.
books that talk about nature
Yeah.
and animals, and I think that would be great.
So the only thing
Yeah.
is, it's for a free library, I think people just take one and leave one.
Yeah.
So
Right.
you can't always control what exactly is going to be there.
Right. I mean, we can certainly
Encourage.
try and encourage and
Sure.
and curate with an eye towards that,
Okay.
definitely. But you know, that's
So that's
Well,
input.
if you're
I
the
think
steward,
get-
then
you
I would
get-
pull anything out that's not, and I would put it in the other boxes.
it's going to be a very things that I have a concern is to make sure that it is of natural color. So it's
Okay.
not like white, it's not a beacon, that it fits within the natural
thank you.
environment.
Sorry.
So, okay.
Now, does the Free Library organization, do they have templates that you are supposed to follow so that they're consistent across
No,
all their
you can
kiosks?
you can make little free libraries out of almost anything. There's a woman who made a little free library out of a hollow stump in her front yard when the
Okay.
tree came down.
It's
or
amazing.
It is amazing. There, like people have made little free libraries out of old lockers or like some.
Pinterest has a lot.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
like a guy built a full TARDIS. Like the whole. I mean,
Yeah,
so
if you're really bored one night,
yeah.
go down that rabbit
Good.
hole.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
it's
so
amazing.
we've got a lot of things we've got to
I'm
discover,
sorry.
so we just want to be able to guide you.
Not
So
sure.
this is not, my understanding of this is not, we're not saying go ahead and do it. What we're saying is carry on the dialogue, bring back for us.
Would you want to see a land use permit for this, or just go ahead and do it, or?
I think it's more of like a signage.
It is
type
kind of like a,
thing,
yeah, it's not really something.
Yeah, but we would need just a plan in terms of dimensions, material, things like that.
What kind of materials would you like me to limit my, like metal, wood, no plastic, or plastic? How?
Well, you're
what's
gonna have
the?
to use plexiglass a lot of people use plexiglass.
Yeah.
more
For the
rain
doorway
resistant,
versus-
yeah.
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 Built last
So I don't
time
feel
this
as though
year.
there's any limitations. That
I wouldn't wanna see like a big plastic box out there though.
Right.
Oh,
You know,
no,
it'd be-
yeah, something
you know,
that fit-
plexiglass is one thing.
something that
but-
fits within the
Right.
natural environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we would give you liberty to that.
Great.
Okay, we
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a great night.
You too.
Amy Vernal Pool.
Oh, did I hear you talking about get rid of the vernal pools when you first walked in?
I was happy about the frog amphibian
She took a
is
picture of the
crossing guard.
flyer. and-
You're
Flyer.
welcome to take that with you, but do you get crossings near you?
Yes, we do. There's a vernal pool at the bottom of our property.
Yeah.
And so we get lots and lots and lots of amphibians.
Are they going across Harvard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might want to check it out. I might
Okay.
want to check it out,
Oh,
so
yeah,
I might be in
absolutely.
contact with you.
Yes,
again.
please
Okay.
do.
All right.
And
Sorry.
I'm around a lot, so
Yeah.
because I'm an artist, I work from home. So.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
So Amy,
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw it. I'm doing. Oh, yeah. There you go. The vernal pool
I didn't see it.
night crossing. If any of you want to sign up, let me know.
Yeah, because we have crossings at the lake.
Of the salamanders?
Well, no,
Turtles. Yeah. Yeah.
I
So
don't know, we might have salamanders, but.
Is
again,
that on?
never any guarantee you're going to see anything. I got like 40 or 50 people signed up.
To
And
me-
I know they won't all show up. You know, it's 8 o'clock at night after you had dinner and it's raining and everyone's like in their slippers. It's really hard to get back out
I'm
again.
interested if I'm around. I'll take
All right.
Are
some.
you just doing a group email for those
Yes.
people? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that on the website at all?
Yeah, I added a vernal pool link on there with everything in it.
Okay.
And I'm working with the Acton Conscom on that.
Great. Discussion 86 Colonial Drive enforcement order ratification.
So I issued the enforcement order and she is in the process of getting it recorded.
Okay.
So, and I basically, what did I say? She needs to talk to her representatives, come back in with an assessment of the impacts to you guys, and submit that by April 8th, for the April 8th meeting.
Okay. Do you need a signature from
I just need
anyone
a vote
tonight?
to ratify it.
Okay. Would anyone like to make the motion to ratify?
I'll make a motion to ratify the enforcement order for 86 Colonial Drive.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So whenever the snow melts, which
Yep.
we can do a sidewalk, because it's light.
Yeah. I was disoriented. I walked out of work and was like, what is this?
Yeah.
It's not dark.
Sneezed.
It's really weird.
Yep. Okay, Kinghorn conservation restriction?
I think that was a leftover, that should
That's
be
what I
on there.
thought, because I was done last. Okay, let's jump up to a few things. Notice of intent, invasive,
Species?
So, I mean, the Board of Selectmen had said, go ahead, but touch base with Concord. I touched base with Concord, and of course Concord's not getting back to me. So I'm not sure if we should, just go ahead and file it and let's get started, or, all right.
Yep.
I think because our goal was that we really wanted it while we had not so much snow cover, but frozen ground and
Yeah,
prior to spring
Yeah.
blooms.
all right, I
Okay.
will try to get it on time for the filing date.
Okay. Update for IME Very Fine?
They want to, the rail siding was designed with infiltration pipe underneath that would
Right.
feed into the
Oh,
system.
yeah.
They're saying they don't really need it. It kind of came up in the value engineering, basically, that it's not necessary, so they want to pull it out.
We said it was necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the
Plastic
discussion,
bead.
so
That
I
was
told them
a
that.
specific thing that was supposed to provide containment for the
Right, so I told
the
him
plastic bead.
he couldn't come in for
Yeah.
tonight, but to come in for the 25th
Yeah.
on the town.
Yeah, we need
session.
to discuss it. That was something
You
we
could also guide them that.
specifically
maybe something
discussed at the site visit.
That they may not wanna start off that way.
Yeah,
I would tell him to consult his stormwater consultant as well, because
oh, they did, and they said it's not gonna make any difference
for
in,
their stormwater permit.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
yeah, so,
Okay.
I told him I wasn't gonna
We
approve it.
still need containment because it discharges to the wetland.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay. Update on the point and second location of a potential hotel?
Yeah, they wanna build a second hotel, across from the cinema, which is Pad M, and they have to change some of the grading, which I only kinda looked at. I told them based on the fact that there have been issues with those slopes
Yeah,
before.
right?
I'm not clear if they're moving the toe slope or just steepening it, or, yeah, moving the toe.
Wait, as you face the hotel, I'm sorry, the
No,
cinema
you
is
face
to the left?
Cinema, it's on the right. where all
If the cinema's
cinemas
to
right
your
now.
back, it's right in front of you,
It's where the construction.
Oh.
as you're looking down 495.
temporary
It's where they
construction
throw all the
was.
snow and there's
Right.
stuff stored
So
there.
if you're driving up the road to the
On the right.
cinema, it's on the right,
Yes.
before you get to the
Where we
cinema.
had the
Where they had the
temporary
bridge crossing,
construction
there's a little bridge
bridge.
crossing there.
Right.
That would be,
It's
yeah.
tough over there.
That's a
Yeah,
that's a
it's
tough
a tough
site.
spot.
So what are they asking, so are they
So,
looking to
first they
amend?
wanted to know what it would take, whether it's a minor modification without, or an amended order of conditions. I said, I'm betting it might be an amended order of conditions.
No, that's,
And there's
yeah, I mean,
other,
they had like silted in,
I reminded there's other issues like the
like mass
basin
wasting.
free
What
has to be
was,
massive
um,
erosion.
They owe us a
We still
conservation.
Yeah, we
have
need to
our
talk about
CR.
that.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
How did we
over
leave
there.
Pan Am? What was
Were they gonna build on it
what was gonna
originally?
be, was something going to go?
There was gonna be an
there?
office building or something there. They had something.
Building.
Then it shouldn't be.
So it's still a building.
Right.
It's still
Yeah, there's-
impervious, yeah.
Yeah,
The
there've
slope's
been
gonna
issues
change a
over
little
there,
bit.
so they need.
So I think
yeah,
you
we
could-
But
need
it kind of opened up the whole
Talk.
can of worms, and then of course I happened to look it up, and their order conditions expires tomorrow. So I said, you might want to do that really quickly. We've gone past,
Yeah.
but if they can get, I said, you might want to get that in really fast.
And they've already renewed that once.
It was renewed with the original construction, and then they get 4 years with the Permanent Extension Act, which puts it into now.
Okay, so I think you can give them the feedback that you heard
Yeah.
tonight, and we still have not completed the CR over there as well.
They are actually working on it. They were supposed to have it recorded 6 months after occupancy permits of phase 2. And of course, all the phases changed and all this stuff, so I've been kind of nipping at their heels recently, so I said, well, now you're really coming back to the Conscom or something.
Yeah, because isn't there one more building supposed to be built to the left of the cinema?
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Yeah, way up in the back, sort of,
Yeah,
yeah,
up in the back.
Yeah.
Is that
That's
gonna
like a
happen?
third phase.
yeah. I
Oh,
don't
that's
know
the
if
third phase?
they'll- Yeah, that might be down the road a bit.
Okay. Okay, so that.
Yeah, I think they have been working on the CR. It's frankly, there's almost a meet and bound issue because it's crazy over there.
So would the
Property line.
CR include the trail too?
That's, yeah.
It's basically Basin 1 and the other side of Basin 1.
So we would be wanting them to finish the trail so it can actually be used?
I think the CR would just allow that to happen. It's gotta be written in. They're gonna need an easement so they get to the basin. It's there right now, but they need to get a draft in to you guys.
Okay. On the discussions, citizens query regarding Wickham Avenue land.
Not present.
Okay.
He changed his mind. He's not coming up to talk about that.
Okay. Anything else for updates?
I don't think so.
Okay. Down at the very bottom, you had continued requests for certificates of compliance. Are those ones that are seeking to be issued now?
Well, these are the ones they filed in October or something like that, and I went out there and there's all sorts of things they needed to do, and then, the weather just went away and they didn't do anything.
Okay.
So they're just sitting there.
Well, you can't look at it with snow cover.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Right.
And
there's
they
really nothing
can't
we can
do,
right
there are
now.
some lawn issues and sign issues and some erosion
It's
issues.
7:45.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead. First, continued public hearing, notice of intent 24 Deer Run Road, Mass DEP 214884. What'd you say?
I thought you said 24 Deer Run.
26, sorry.
Two of the same.
Okay.
People can see them. Sometimes those reduced size prints that we hand out are a little too small to see. I'm Neil Gorman from David E. Ross Associates. I'm here with Dana and Jana Gilpatrick, the property owners right behind me, and they're a butter as well. His name is Bob Hartzell is here, and he's prepared some additional documentation that we submitted regarding a mitigation plan to help us with this. So I'll give you a quick review and update as to where the plan has gone from here. with Bob's assistance in getting together a mitigation plan and the incorporation of 2 dry wells to collect all the roof runoff, one on each side of the house. They'll be collected by gutters and directed to 2 700-gallon dry wells. I have gone through some preliminary drainage calculations incorporating the mitigation plan and the dry wells pre and post construction if you were to flip the plan over. We basically have 2 design points or 2 watersheds on the property. One that cut basically from the front of the existing house towards the lake, and then from the front of the house towards the road. So those are basically the
Divide.
2 watersheds. And I've run through some preliminary calculations. I brought some with me tonight. And the pre versus the post-construction does not, the post-construction drainage does not exceed the pre-existing. So if you flip to the 3rd page, is a quick summary of the chart there. So the watershed NW, or what I call northwest, which is the part going to the lake. For the 2-year storm, pre-development is 0.01 CFS, and the post is 0. So we've improved it there. And on the 10-year, northwest toward the lake, the pre-development was 0.19, and we've cut that way down to 0.04 with the incorporation, again, with the mitigation plan that Bob had put together, as well as my drainage calculations with the impervious area and collecting the roof runoff and directing that to the dry wells. And then on the southeast, which is going towards the road, the pre-development was at 0.24 CFS, and we've got that all the way down to 0 as well. And then the 10-year goes from 0.66 to 0.25. Again, I put these as preliminary right now because the president of our company is Dan Wolf. He's the PE within our firm, and he's out of state on a family matter, and he hasn't had a chance to review these calculations and confirm my preparations. So I just want to run those by him before he officially stamps them and go through that. But
You're confident with them, they're just not stamp ready just because.
right, I've
they
done
have-
the calculations.
Okay.
I've I've got a couple copies of the full report and the soils out there. But again, I just want to make sure that he looks at it all beforehand. So, so with that part of it, rather than letting the roof run off, just go into gutters and over land that was originally proposed, going to the dry wells certainly helps us. And I just want to point out as well is the plan that we had submitted on the front plan. The revised plan that I had submitted and had stamped that I gave to Amy last week before my boss had went away, incorporated pavers as a patio back here. Right now there's an existing concrete patio, and we were gonna work concrete patio because we're moving the house forward. When I submitted that plan, we were thinking pavers, but after going through all the calculations, these calculations are based as if it were to just stay concrete and not pavers. So even if it were to stay concrete, we can make the pre and the post work. So I guess with that, I'd like to invite Bob up to
If I
explain.
can just ask
Sure.
a quick question, and this is just more reality-based of the storms that seem to be, quite intense and volatile and cumulative. When we're looking at a 10-year, realistically, when we look at the site, I think we need to look at more instances of severe rain. So when we really do look at concrete versus pavers, something for infiltration. Because I feel like these 10-year storms, we get like once a week practically.
I mean, almost in terms of erosive forces as
Right.
opposed to,
Yeah. Just because we have a lot more cover on this with the larger with the larger home.
Okay.
That's a good segue to
Yeah,
the mitigation
so,
plan, because
Bob
that
was gonna
question
talk about
ties
it.
in really well with what we're proposing to do. So, I'm Bob Hartzell. I'm a next door neighbor to Dana and Jana. I'm also a principal with Comprehensive Environmental. And so I'm here not as a comprehensive environmental employee. I'm here as a neighbor, helping out and trying to make this as good of a mitigation plan as
And
possible.
for record, do you want to point of which side on the plan that you are the neighbor?
He's on the south side.
Yes.
Or to the left if you're looking at it from the road.
So the first 2 pages kind
Do you
of,
have a copy of the stormwater stuff that I can have these on?
Yeah.
Sorry.
the first 2 pages lay out a narrative, what we're proposing as mitigation, but all of the features, for the most part, if you were to flip to the color image, that sort of lays the kind of the groundwork for what we're talking about here. So basically, after the last meeting, I sat down with Dana and Jana, and they, I think, were caught a little by, it's their first time around the barn with the Wellness Protection Act here in Massachusetts. So it was more just a chance to sit down with them and talk about, what could be done, what's an appropriate way to approach a project like this, and what's the best possible way to look at alternatives and to come up with the best possible mitigation plan for this site. So the first thing I think to look at is one of the things that Neil already mentioned, which is the runoff patterns. As it stands right now, if you look at the house, which is with the red star in it, you've got half of the roof and all the parking area in front of it shedding overland to the north, or towards the woods rather. And then it follows, that's a very generalized flow pattern. It's actually very conservatively laid out. It's actually much longer than that if you were to follow it down the road where it eventually goes into the woods. But that's approximately what happens. It crosses Deer Run Road, goes into the woods through a wetland area, which is about 220 feet away, makes a turn, and then comes back to the lake. The lake side of the roof sheds overland towards the lake. The new house in its entirety will be shedding in the direction of the blue line. So that's an improvement. There'll be no roof runoff going towards the lake. So, as I think Neil had discussed probably more at the last meeting, there's some, site constraints in terms of pushing the house footprint too much forward towards the road because of where the septic system and the leach fields are located. So with those constraints, the question is really, in my mind, how do we make the landscape function better after the developed, house? So the good thing is, if you were to be anywhere else, anywhere near this house, my house included, the house in the other direction, and so basically, it's like most lakes. You've got a slope going down towards the lake, and it includes a lot of the land going up from it in the uplands. In this case, they're very fortunate that you step out the front door and the water's shedding the other direction, so they've really got that in their favor. The other thing that what they've got going for them, there's some real opportunities for buffer improvement, which as a Lake Association board person, to me, that's a real opportunity. As you go around the lake, you'll find that there's a pretty good amount of intact shoreline, and then you get these pockets where, lawn right down to the edge of the lake and other, not so great soils. What we've got here is 2 areas where we want to put in a really robust woody planting area in the buffer, primarily shrubs. And there's both plans on page 2. So, and these are shrubs that have been selected to have a nice aggressive root zone, but also to have really high wildlife habitat value for birds and other mammals in the nearshore area. So functionally, the main opportunity is what we're calling Area 1. Unfortunately, the previous tenants had been mostly wooded, and they went in and clear cut it. And I'd seen it, I watched it happen. Not a great thing. It happens in lake communities. People don't like to be whistleblowers on their neighbors. It's just, it's a tight community. But here now, years later, there's an opportunity to really take that whole area, it's about 840 square feet there, and plant it and have it be, written into the order of conditions. And I think that's a real bonus, because any overland flow, if you've got a really aggressive woody planting root zone, that's probably the best thing you can do. I mean, to find an opportunity like that in that size, and a lot of this size and shape, that's gold. There's a smaller area up to the top of the steps that lead down to the lake. I'm going to show you the plan now.
Over here is easier to see. So this is the first area he was talking about, on the lake side. There's a second area at the top of these wood stairs over in here.
Yeah, that's smaller. It's about 184 square feet. Right. So in total, the ratio of buffer zone improvement to the footprint that would be maintained, staying within the 0 to 50-foot zone, it's about a 3.6 to 1 ratio. And that's really, and that's not including, that ratio does not include any of the areas that were talked about as pavers or any of the existing developed portions of the lot. So it's really just taking advantage of every single area that is essentially devoid of plants. This area that had been cut down, it's pretty good slope, and over, as you can imagine, it's tough to see in this picture because of the snow cover now, but the runoff, the erosive factor there is probably fairly high. It's
Yeah,
just
the topo lines are pretty telling.
Yeah,
for how
exactly.
steep that slope is.
Yep, and over the years since the vegetation was cut, little bits of you get little pine saplings this big, or just other things that have filled in, but it's not nearly what it could or should be in a near-shore area to a lake. So
Now, are they wanting to keep the woody plantings low? Are they wanting a view, like to retain a view, or are they planning on?
well, the planting plan was keeping that in mind. I think, being realistic and having done this for a bunch of other communities, there was probably most approximate to where we are now. I did a project with a Section 319 grant out at Lake Shirley in Lunenburg, about 800 feet of plantings, and similar species, similar heights. The idea is that you want something that's going to be permanent. If they sell the house in 5 years, you don't want the next homeowners to come in and say, wow, that's blocking my view. So most of these top out, anywhere from, say, the smallest ones, well, like a sand cherry, that's pretty small. That won't get more than 4 feet. Some of the other, the gray dogwoods, those will get up to 12, 15 feet. But they're also, they really take pruning very well. So if you were to trim them back to keep them at a modest height. The other good thing is with these slopes, they can get reasonably tall and not block sight lines from the house or from the patio.
Did you happen to take into thought, so post-development where the footprint has expanded, when we're taking out additional trees, if we need to look at additional plantings where the new house is going? So, because it is very thick in terms of some of these tall trees here. Oh, that's what, the tall trees.
Yeah, that's a little bit, the way I would look at it, if you see where the blue line extends away from the house, there is a pocket there that's like the gravel or packed dirt parking area. So that's really where the footprint would be moving forward. As I understand it, there's no mature trees that would have to come down. Is that
I
correct?
don't believe so.
I don't think so.
I'd have to double check right out in here, because the driveway does push in a little bit there. So it'd be right at the top of this. Right near the
'cause
fireplace.
Of this filing, you'd really want to look, because you do have some big trees there.
Yep.
But if they do have to come down, you'd want to talk about it now versus coming back in after your new home is there.
If they are outside the 100-foot buffer zone, if
Okay.
that's of any matter, because the 100-foot buffer zone's right here,
Okay.
and that's the edge of the gravel driveway is existing gravel driveway is right here, which I know that,
And
And it drains away from the
and
lake.
it drains that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if there were one or two that did have to come down, which I haven't, I know that lot, and I really be surprised if it's going to take out anything big. There's certainly room on the margins of this, if you look at Area 1, there's certainly room along the margins, like there's a birch tree over here, and this is actually fairly conservative. It could creep out a little bit, you could plant a few larger trees along the edges. What we're trying to do is keep it in a, not push the limits of the square footage we were taking credit for, because you've got overhanging canopy, and you just want to make
I
sure that.
wouldn't plant any taller trees.
No.
Right.
So is the only access going to be now down that set of stairs to
Correct.
reach the lake?
And that's all there is now, really. You wouldn't walk down that slope. It's just a little too steep. You'd be digging your heels in the whole way. So the answer is yes. But this would really
Go
formalize
sledding under
that.
the ice.
Yeah, you could now, but the idea would be not in the future.
Really head down with my sled.
So this would formalize that staircase access and really have it as the primary and only way to get down there.
And is part of that where you pull out the dock in the winter?
So you can see on the photo here, there's a narrow concrete retaining wall there, and that's where the steps are laid now. And I think, if you had.
So you've left room for that to keep doing?
Yeah, I think all you'd have to do is just orient them a little bit differently. I mean, there was no reason to not just lay them out, on the slope now, but if with plantings there, you just have to angle them a little differently.
So along the shoreline, I see the wall. How much in front of the plantings would there be usable lakefront? Or where would the usable lakefront be?
Well, because it's all concrete, if you look at the photo here,
Yeah,
you basically step off the concrete retaining wall and the lake's right there.
So you have to use the dock.
Yeah, I mean, there
It's
are
not like
sometimes
there's a
during,
wall,
I thought I
so
was
you use the
wondering.
dock
So the dock is your,
entry.
right, I mean, there are times in, late summer when the water level gets very low where you could probably step off the wall and you've got, what, maybe a foot or two of sand at most? Yeah, but for the most part,
The only
it's-
reason I'm asking on this line of questioning is because you're obviously on a lake, and in the summer you want to use the lake. And so there's going to be a lot of traffic going back and forth, and you're going to have stuff down by the lake. That's what you're there for. So I was just trying to I just want to get a good handle on how this whole thing's going to work, with your new plantings and that kind of thing.
well, I mean, you guys can speak to this better, but I've lived on the lake for, pushing 15 years now, and I don't think I've ever seen any humans standing on any part of that slope just because it's too steep to be usable. And I doubt, all this would do is make it more functional, more attractive, and just a better buffer zone. I don't think it would change the use or the, things getting on it during the summer. That's, the dock and the retaining wall really serve that function for access, and
Okay.
I'm
Any
not sure if you guys
commissioners
have
have
anything to add to
any
that. but-
questions?
Yeah, I think our big question last time was doubling the size of the house. I think it was going to be double. Am I
The
right?
net increase in
And
impervious.
so I think that was a big question in our minds. We haven't talked about that yet.
Well,
Has there been any
Well, as part of the
thinking on that?
stormwater was if you have an increase of 1,000 square feet or is the 5% the increase of impervious or 5% of the work in the buffer zone? I can't, it's kind of,
It's
On the
impervious.
so it's whichever is less.
Yeah.
So we trigger that either
Right,
way.
yeah.
Or we're just under 1,000 square feet of new impervious, but obviously. So again, that's where I jumped in and did all the drainage analysis calculations and Bob's input of that, trying to improve the, obviously increasing the shrubs in kind of a barren area, and the introduction of the dry wells to provide as much recharge for the runoff of the roof, rather than running it over surface. I know Sarah was concerned about that. It gets it in the ground, less worries of erosion. So,
If I could take my neighbor hat off for just a second and put on my Lake Association hat, from that perspective, if every time someone, did a renovation on a house, the net result was to have this kind of improvement in the functional buffer zone, if the functional landscape was working better to protect the lake, that's a good outcome. It's not, to me, it's not the size of the building, it's
Well,
how's it.
for us it is.
Yeah, no, I get that. I
Okay,
do.
And we appreciate your input, but we do have to keep moving,
Yeah,
so.
for us it
um,
is, and that's kind of,
One-
because if you're going for a
the
waiver,
numbers are outside, so we're not gonna
obviously if
close
you're,
it tonight anyways.
obviously if you're going for a
Right.
waiver, you have to get, the public benefit has to be.
yeah,
Right.
and that's what
So
we're
it's
trying
the
to.
planting, so the
I
planting
get,
is a
I
big
get that, I
benefit.
get, I
That's
get
pretty
that.
Yeah, so it's
Well, and I
definitely-
also-
yeah, go ahead.
I guess my observation also is that there's no garage in the existing house, and so the addition of a garage with some living space without doing like a 3-story house or whatnot is, I think it's, reasonable that they need to have some increase in their area, and that's why we have to do the stormwater calculations. So am I excited that there's more of the buffer zone being taken up? Of course not, but I think, we're working at it, and we're seeing improvements in the engineering and improvements in the stormwater quality, and also improvements in the plantings, to help meet the waiver for the public benefit, which is really to slow that water down that slope. Like you could rebuild small and in the footprint, not trip the stormwater, and not, it could be different. So I see a benefit there. We're not
So you're gonna verify the numbers, take into account kind of the 10-year to just see if we need to make any other accommodations. it sounds as though we would keep this open until we do have those numbers
I
wrapped up.
didn't know
'Cause-
if you still were interested in a site walk or not. I know the snow is leaving shortly, but I did provide
I think
pictures at the
helpful.
beginning of the project.
Yeah, those
I think
pictures
we
were really
need
helpful.
to.
Yep.
And if we're gonna continue, I mean, we kind of have to continue it because of the stormwater, so.
But if you,
But
I
we
think
is there
we
a chance
know-
we can do a site walk before the next
Sure.
meeting, so
Yeah.
that maybe at the next meeting we
Absolutely.
can wrap things up?
Yep, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
without with the snow melting.
Let's come up with do you want to set a date now, or, I think
Yeah,
with
I-
snow
I
melt,
would
it
suggest
would be
now.
looking at the end of the week would be appropriate,
Yeah.
or the top of the next. Is there a day this week?
I'm pretty flexible personally.
Well, Friday's supposed to be like
60.
60 and rainy.
That would be good for observing stormwater.
Want to shoot for Thursday then?
Action.
Anybody around Thursday
Thursday afternoon,
after work? Then?
maybe like 5 o'clock, well 5:30ish.
Yeah, 5:30.
Hey.
Yeah, 5 would be really challenging. I could
You want to do
we
later?
could do 5:30.
Pro can do 5:30 Thursday?
Thursday, 5:30. I could try.
Does that work for you?
I could try to.
Oh, you know what? I have a 6 o'clock meeting, so that might be a little tricky.
We'll say 5:20. 5:20?
5:20 sounds good. Okay.
I know you won't have your boots on, so it doesn't matter.
Hey.
You stay at the top of the slope.
Okay, so Thursday, 5:20, if something comes up, Amy will let you know, but we'll shoot for 5:20.
Can you also specify the plant size of the shrubs and stuff? Whether they're
Yeah,
3 to
but
4 height or
I
down?
actually had them on the table and I took them off because I didn't want to confuse matters, but yeah, it's
Just
easy to
somewhere,
do.
yeah.
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thanks for your time,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
We're running a little late, so continued public hearing, notice of intent, 76 Whitcomb Ave, water treatment plant. So this is a continued hearing from last week. Last meeting, not last week. Okay. So, Kevin, you were not here at the last meeting, so maybe we'll just do an overview of what was requested from the last meeting going forward, which I see you have a copy of right there.
Yep. So from the last meeting Corey attended, Ty and Bond has since drafted a letter, which I have in my hands here, and essentially taking into account some of your concerns, some of the information that Ty and Bond's provided, the riverfront area, the analysis.
We did an analysis, so basically it says everything
So-
there that we talked about.
And that's
that they
shown on your
presented.
map.
So just reiterated that. There are a couple points in that that I think are poignant about why the relocation, in terms of infiltration. So if you want to share those with the commission and perhaps the audience as well. I think that would be
Yep,
helpful.
so originally, we looked at when we looked at the project in its entirety, the replacement of the wells, currently for the water, from the water department perspective, we're permitted for 600 gallons per minute over there. With the current wells in the condition that they are in, and even when we go in and clean them each year and such, the max we get out is 450 gallons, and that's the best case scenario. So as part of the overall plan here was to, as we look forward to constructing a treatment plant to handle the iron and manganese issues that we have with that well field, we also want to restore that 600 gallons per minute. So we looked at replacing the wells and doing replacement wells, not doing new wells. Is more involved in permitting new wells. Becomes a new source in the eyes of DEP. So with the replacement process, essentially we're going to be limited, we've got to do a minimum of 3 wells. Right now we're showing 4 new wells. The current well 3 well field as it is constituted is a series of 6 wells. And they need to be within 50 feet of the existing wells. So that's what the plan is and what DEP wants us to do over there. The depth of the wells, we want to stay above 30 feet. And really the strata below that becomes glacial till anyways, so it really doesn't benefit us to go any deeper and such. So that's what we're looking at, in regards to the new wells. And then I don't know if you want me to get into the siting of the well, the treatment plant itself, some of the reasoning for that. But again, the idea is when we looked at, in the eyes of DEP, removing some of the buildings and getting them outside of the Zone 1 protection, and also with the floodplain issues, to site the plant across the
Right,
street.
so I think my
Yeah,
reference
do you wanna,
was,
like,
yes,
I
the
get- so, like, the-
3.3, in
Yep.
terms
Yeah.
of, we asked to have the alternative analysis done,
Yep.
and I think
So-
those are the key points that the commissioners would like to, because
Yeah,
they some
exactly.
haven't
So
seen that.
there's
go
like,
over those.
there's probably, so the last time we discussed building on the same side of Wickham as the wells, or on the opposite side where this is the selected alternative. We're proposing to have them on the opposite side of the street. The real reasons that drove that selection process were infiltration of the discharge water from the new water treatment plant, which on the opposite side of the street you have the benefit of the finished floor elevation is much higher than the 100-year floodplain, whereas across the street you're much closer to that, so you have a resiliency issue even if you site the building just above the 100-year floodplain, and then you have a much shallower distance to groundwater from those leaching beds. Those are two big design criteria. And then a third part of why developing this site on the same side of the road as the well field would be floodplain, so BLSF and riverfront area are both, impacts that you'd possibly be grading into either. You'd have to look for,
Right, there'd be, if we move, there'd be a lot more
BLSF,
impact on the floodplain.
Yeah.
so like both a building resiliency, the infiltration function for the building,
Flooding.
for the, grading at the site were all reasons why we wanted to site the building on the opposite side of the street.
Okay. Commissioners have any questions?
Is the highway department building with the contamination, is that like an MCP? Is there like an MCP project for that yet, or is there going to be, and
Yeah,
you're gonna
that's-
come back
that's-
in? Is that separate?
Yeah,
from
that would
this?
be
So
a
see you guys
different
again for
project.
that with the 200-foot riverfront
Depending on, I guess we can look at that.
jurisdictional if you're gonna demo.
Yeah.
If it's
well, we
if
show,
it's not
we
part
show
of this, but
pavement
we can.
removal in that area,
Yep.
but the rest of it is, so the part of that project.
So it's outside the 200
So
riverfront
here's-
area.
So this is the edge of BLSF and this is the edge of the riverfront area. So, I guess it would be that design is not yet made, like the demo of this is not drawn out on these plans, so if you are grading into here, it may be something that it would come back to you for.
See, the building was close.
But it is out of our jurisdiction.
The building appears, yeah.
But if they're
like-
demoing the building, they need to do erosion control. If it was within the 200-foot
Mhm.
riverfront,
they're-
it would be
they're-
our jurisdiction.
right,
That
they're
was,
not.
so that was my
Or the
question.
floodplain, they switch on which one's the furthest.
Right.
Along FEMA, floodplain.
So based on the information that is taken, does anybody else have any other questions?
Well, do we, we had a citizen with some comments last time, and I was wondering,
And so
were these?
that was with the alternative, they had asked to have the alternative.
Yeah,
looked
so I
at.
just were her comments addressed?
I believe so in.
But there are butters here
Yeah.
too, so I don't know if they have any.
Does anyone have, so if the commissioners are done with their questions, anyone in the audience have any questions?
I don't know if this is relevant or appropriate to ask here, but I am curious, I know that there's, down.
If you could just state your name?
Yes, Robert Otto.
Okay.
I know downstairs there's an article specifically for an additional $1 million worth of funding for this project. I'm just curious if you could
So-
speak to that as far as,
I don't know that it's our
yeah.
position to speak with that. We are specifically asked to hear on this, so, and
Understood.
I can't because I'm not familiar with it,
Right.
so.
I just didn't know if the engineers could speak to that at
Yeah.
all.
I think in staying in the purview of what is submitted,
Sure.
we would ask them to only
If
discuss
that's the,
this.
yeah, if it's the treatment plant, it's not
Yeah,
within
sure.
our,
Just a brief, it's my understanding is that particular article is actually being withdrawn. I'll make sure of it, but that's my understanding. Is,
Okay.
is-
Okay.
Okay.
Done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you.
Okay, yep, okay. So what is the commission's pleasure on this one? I'm assuming you would like to close this?
I would love to close this.
I'd like to make a
Sure.
motion to issue
Okay.
an order of conditions.
So Anna has made the motion, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Maybe that's your,
Thanks for crunching all those numbers.
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe tomorrow. Don't
There's
know.
a-
With
there's
that
a
reaction,
10 is a
with that
10-day
reaction, you want to
approval.
wait a week or so?
No, that's fine. I didn't know, right, I think we had to wait another month.
I think it's the only one that's
Probably
gonna
get an
come out tonight, and she's maybe another one, so I feel get rid
Got an
of
outer box, it's fine.
Okay, let's see, the next continued public hearing notice of intent, 27 Fort Pond Hill Road, U28-6-10, Mass DEP 204-882. Construction of single-family house, driveway extension, well, and associated work.
Hi.
Evening, if you can just introduce yourself, that would be great.
My name is Sid Gillard. I'm the owner of the property.
John Field, I'm the consultant. So, last meeting, we were asked to add some notes and some,
These the same.
they're the same. My notes. So, the concerns were a buffer zone, I'm sorry, the concerns were erosion control, not shown on the plan. So, that was added. Let me put on my list. We added an area to store snow, which is the hashed area in here. The grading is fairly close to the driveway height now as it comes up the hill. There'd have to be some slight brush clearing and a little bit of grading work in that area to flatten it up. But it allows,
So in something that I saw that was submitted, there was a cut sheet that showed, specifically shows snow storage on the road going down. Do you have that plan
that's
that you'd like
it's
to
a
show the
GIS
commission?
photo. Yeah. It's in here.
There's the aerial photo.
Yeah,
Talking about?
it's a Google picture that has both,
That's what I.
It's gonna
Yeah.
clear 'cause it's in-
No, I just saw it on the
Yeah.
aerial photo.
Yeah.
I was wondering, I thought we would see it on the plans.
so that was just, and the reason I didn't include
Yeah.
it, it's very difficult to look at. It doesn't reproduce
Well,
well.
it looks fine in color, but
Yeah.
in black and white, it's tough.
Right.
Yeah, so you point to areas, I was
Mhm.
unclear,
Amy, do you
I
have
guess
that-
other than
Is that in the
this
filing?
is
Where did I see
here.
that picture?
I'm
that was in color?
unclear on,
It was in,
there's
in this,
something
but
on
it's
a
black and white.
plan that has.
Is the color one in there?
No,
Like,
there's
are
a
you
black and
gonna
white,
do
so it just-
bump
No,
outs
there's
here?
there's no need to. There's, it's just the edge of the driveway. There's probably
So
3 or 4 feet.
is it gonna go into shrubs and trees?
Yeah, well, it's just, it was filled areas, so the cut was pulled from here across to make a level driveway, and so the area
there's
cleared
volume.
is
Can
probably
I see that
16
one?
feet.
So it looks like part of the snow storage area is crossing into the wetland.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw it in color.
Blue line is the
So-
wetland, right?
But the wetlands is over here.
Yeah.
Yes,
This is
So it's going into the wetland.
where,
But we were worried about the structure, like
Yeah,
right here at the
right.
end of the driveway, so we had talked about something right here,
Yeah,
cause there was
that's-
no,
and that's what
and
this-
we talked about something possibly over in this area.
right, cutting a little bit more over there.
well,
but-
you don't have enough, to cut onto that side over there, you'd be probably 6 feet, 5 feet below grade. The hill comes up quite sharply
Mm-hmm.
on that side.
So, these areas, and I think that's what you were asking at, is
Yeah.
like, are we cutting in
No.
there?
There's no work necessary to be done there.
Well, how are we gonna put snow over there then?
Well, the plow's gonna push it as it comes down the hill. But I actually didn't focus on that. I thought the concern was more closer to the resource area.
It is, but I thought, where is the line over here in terms of,
It's on this plan here.
I guess, John, what we're trying to figure out is any of these areas that we're gonna put snow storage, are they out of the jurisdiction? With the exception of this one, we know that
Oh,
they're
yes.
doing that.
Yes. Let's see, to get you oriented, here's the buffer line, and it comes around and down like that. It kind of follows this.
And the driveway.
This stream, and the driveway goes straight up. So the wall is about 45 feet. The start of the wall is about 40 to 45 feet from the edge of the pavement.
The existing wall?
No, there's a stone wall here. You can see remnants of the
But
stone wall.
wouldn't that be on this area?
It might be right over in here, but I can't really tell. It's, but I prepared this one more. I thought that was more of the area of concern as the truck needs to come down and dump snow off. It would come down and dump snow off into here.
Right, and I think we were focusing on that. I think the discussion had occurred that to try and find areas up of that, that
Mhm.
would perhaps take some of the weight off of that in terms of all the storage.
Mhm.
And that's why I thought we were going to cut in a little bit to be able to make an area where the snow could just get pushed off before it all made it down the hill.
Well, I think having plowed quite a bit, I would angle a blade to plow away from the side over here, because there's just a swale and then there's a pretty steep bank. This side over here is relatively free. We cut back all of the brush and the undergrowth. There's
And the swale side, is that all going to get cleaned up and unvegetated again?
It was, and it's part of a discussion I have in an O&M plan to keep it maintained.
Okay.
Now, why is the erosion control crossing over the snow storage area? If you're gonna grub, you said
Well,
you're gonna clear this?
This doesn't need, the only place it really is sloping upwards is right in here. This, if you were to cut anything off of here, it would be lower than the driveway. So I don't anticipate doing any work
'Cause it
other
cuts
than
off.
right in
Okay.
here.
Oh, okay, so this is already clear, you wouldn't have to even do
Yes,
anything?
no.
Clean up, yeah.
Okay, so that's why your hay bale's crossing.
Yeah, it's a direct kind of discharge right there. Okay, let's carry on through the list that.
Boulders are shown along here to mark the end of the driveway.
And you have a blow up of that, I think, somewhere.
Yes, yes. This is the blown up version. There is a cross-section of the spreader, more detail for the construction on this page here. I added a note to address the DEP concern about the riparian area, how it was to be filled. And then I
Wait, what?
also, well, there was a question on the application, and Amy had mentioned that the question was how was this area to be treated, and it was grassed. And then there was a question of the cut sheet for the stabilization material for the driveway, which I included. I emailed.
Right,
Oh,
and
that-
we looked at that. So, with the information that you provided, we looked at that, and so if you can kind of walk through, because I believe the commissioners had comments on the product and it being a durability, plastic,
Mhm.
wetlands, and you had sent along some information in here that kind of talks about the actual ground grid pavers are 4 inches, and it's 8.5 feet by 27 feet. Anybody have any questions on that? So basically, it would be stamped in at the
Well-
very bottom, but
Right.
you know, in terms of plowing and things like that.
Which area are you talking about?
So that
Right.
essentially would be
Where it's
below the top of the stone.
Oh, the turnaround.
And the benefit of this is that there isn't a whole lot of competent material here. And my concern is the heavy trucks coming off of the hot top are going to punch through that without being able to put down a decent base. So this with 8 inches of gravel and a geogrid underneath it, to my mind, gives you enough stability.
Okay.
The grid itself keeps the
What
stone.
about longevity?
I can only say that I think it would be better than any of the alternatives, which would be, say, a timber backing or some maybe concrete pavers.
How do you keep the geogrid in place? Because some of the materials show like a lumber frame around it.
They have a stake, and I'm not sure if it's there, but there's a stake that goes through the top of it and will hold that as you pull it out as an accordion.
How many
It gets
stakes?
pinned. It gets pinned to the ground. I'm not sure. It's
I mean, is it just one to kind of keep it in place?
Oh,
so
no.
you can accordion it out?
no,
or
no,
is
no, no,
it,
no. It's
Did you look at materials that maybe were not plastic? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we've already talked about the slope there
Mhm.
is not real competent, which is why we're having this conversation in the first place and the
Mhm.
concerns in the first place. And so, have you looked at, other than like an asphalt driveway and the plastic grid, is there any other material like concrete, stone, you know, something of that nature? I have real
Yeah.
concerns about plastic and longevity. It's going to get brittle. It's going to be a high use area, especially with the plowing and, you know, and the slope, you know, as we've said a few times, isn't.
So would you prefer
Great.
something that's a little bit more like a concrete?
There's something
Or-
durable, and if it's going to break down, it's not going to slough off tiny pieces of plastic into the wetland. I mean, that's
Mhm.
my biggest concern. If you know, slough off pieces of rock, I think that's easier to pull out. It's less of a concern. Plastics will leach, you know.
I think this is a product that, you know, when I looked at its application, it looks like it works well in certain instances. But I feel because you're gonna get water down there and you're gonna get the frost and the contraction of that, I just don't know that it's gonna be stable long-term, that I feel like it's gonna shift. And especially with that amount of traffic going into the driveway, the plowing, the trucks, the turnarounds. It's not like it's being put in an isolated area. It's in its highest impact area in terms of traffic.
well, I don't think that's the case. I think that you're talking about edges, and it may be plowed half a dozen times a year. Maybe a dozen times. There are snow events. But
But we also know
The
that
turnarounds
the
and
ice
parking
runs
and-
down in that area. I'm just thinking
Mhm.
contractions and.
I just, when this breaks down, we can't, you know, we can only go as far as the order of conditions. When this breaks down, I
Mhm.
don't want shards of plastic in the wetland. I would rather have some other more durable material and something that's not going to contribute plastic to the environment.
outside of asphalt, so some
So do they
CMU
make
product.
this in steel? Where you
No.
then
I don't
just-
No,
I,
no.
no, but I think don't they make it in concrete?
Yeah,
or
there's
some-
a CMU product. It's
Yeah.
uh,
It's like a paver, right? There are like
Uh,
multiple
concrete.
pavers you can put down and then you
Concrete,
fill them.
yeah.
I mean, I'm not an
Mhm.
engineer, but that's my only awareness of another.
Mhm.
I think we need a
There's-
seminar on
Yeah.
impervious. I'm not comfortable with the plastic, and it sounds like you didn't really have, you know, your response to durability
Mhm.
when Sarah asked.
Well,
I didn't
I
feel
can't
like
tell you that it will be 10
Right.
years or 20 years, but I can tell
Right.
you it's the same stuff that we are putting in the ground in terms of chambers,
Mm.
pipe.
Yep.
It's a PVC material, so it's designed to be resistant.
Yep.
But I'm willing to
PVC.
defer if you're okay with a concrete masonry unit. It's essentially the same thing. It's a cell. It's 6 inches or 8 inches thick, and it's laid up. And I think a 12 by 12 block, and you fill that with
It's kind of
crushed
this is a
stone.
bigger. It's almost is like bigger cells, like that almost.
It's just a heavier material, and I think there's more comfort with the durability of it. I mean, if you can say that you know, if there's literature out there or something that says it's adequately durable. I know we're putting PVC all over the place, and well aware of that. But from a longevity standpoint, that's our concern because it's so close to the resource area. It might be different if it wasn't so close, but
Okay.
that's my feeling.
Okay. So take those comments in. Let's carry on down this list if there are other things we want to address on your list.
I think the last thing was the riverfront area filled, stabilized, and maintained as lawn. That was the question that.
And you had said just what type of seed are you going to put on that? And are there any plantings in that
There-
lawn?
There are no plantings, and it's already established.
Okay. And where do we stand on, there's 1 or 2 dead trees on that backside? Are they being removed? Or that's going to be a different filing?
I would say that's a different filing.
Okay.
I'm not prepared to discuss dead trees. Are you? No.
Dead trees are good for woodpeckers.
They're
And
right
owls.
next to the house.
Yeah.
They're right next to the house,
No,
so
I
why
don't-
would they be
Not
part
right
of
next,
this?
but close.
Well, but I mean, if they could fall on the house.
You might as well put them in.
Why wouldn't they be
vaults.
part of this discussion?
I'm just saying.
Uh,
All right, that's fine.
yeah.
But
let's-
just remember, the trees can't come down because they're in a resource area. You have to come back in and make a new filing.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
The well?
Yep, the well is going to be
The well,
uncovered.
the well has to be uncovered. The Board of Health has to have, I would imagine, a well test. I don't believe one was ever.
Oh, okay. So we have to talk about water of the well test. Where's all that water going to go? Because you're a direct discharge into the wetlands.
Let's reel that back in. I would have to defer to the well company and how they're going to handle that. I would be happy to put up some type of an impoundment.
Well, I think you have to say that when they're going to do that test, then you can make the well people come back in and do it if we're not going to discuss it now. But we've had quite a few wells that are under high pressure that have really blown out, especially Chestnut.
Chestnut,
We've had ones that once they popped those caps off, they basically never stopped again. So, and this is even more sensitive to the wetlands than over there because it is a direct discharge. So we can make that in the order of conditions that if a well test is performed, that they will have to come in and talk about where it's going to go and how they're going to contain the water.
Yeah, I'll let Jim Gruff into
Erosion
that.
control. And
So would it be adequate to use a spreader?
No, because of the volume. I mean, that's going to be a lot of water. And there's no erosion control. That amount of water, you'd have to have a series of erosion controls down gradient of that. Because I think you'd get a wash.
Series of check dams.
Exactly. So, but that would be a separate, that would be
it's not
understand.
somewhere on the
It's
plan.
gonna be hard to get a drill rig in there and have a place to discharge.
Well,
Because the place to do it
I don't
would be a
think you
turnaround.
need,
you don't. It's already drilled.
it's already drilled. So
Yeah,
they got to
yeah.
do a
So-
pressure test.
Yeah,
Or quality, whatever test
Well,
that is.
yeah.
No, I think what the Board of Health would require is just to draw off enough to do a water quality test.
They
They're
can
not
flush
going
it out.
So they don't have
No.
to flush that well?
Well,
you do flush
ne-
it.
it
For
never-
a drinking water test, if
it
it's
never
been
came on.
sitting,
yeah, it's been in use though, hasn't
you
it?
flush it and then you let
You
it
have water in
sit
the house.
for at least
Mm,
8
think so,
hours,
yeah.
and
Yes.
then
Yeah.
you collect
You
the
have
sample.
a heating system. You have
Yep.
water in the
Yep.
house.
Yeah.
So you've been using
Okay.
the water?
I mean,
I'm not using. I'm
But
not
for the
using it.
heat.
Yeah, for heat. and
So it
everything.
circulates, so
Oh,
you
it's
have
radiant
four-
heat.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that that's not a closed system though?
It is.
That was probably
I mean,
forced
it's probably
hot water.
closed. Yeah.
Forced
So it's
hot
not
water.
going to draw more water.
No,
So
but-
anyways, so that's out of our purview, so that's
Yeah.
something that, if it's
That
not
will be
on this
discussed.
plan, so if you
Yeah.
wish for us to close this evening,
Yes,
then anything outside of what is
understood.
permitted
Okay.
today
Contained
will
in the plans.
require you to come back in.
Any dewatering or discharge.
Mhm. Okay. And that would mean that so I just want to think of the timing of this. So if they start to do the work on the new discharge area, and then all of a sudden simultaneously they want to ask for the well to be worked on, are you going to stop currently what's being worked on and have them come in, or are they going to run concurrently, is my question.
I think they could run concurrently.
I'm just asking. So,
If you issue the order of conditions, they're gonna be able to do what's on this
Yeah.
plan.
What's on the order of
They
conditions?
can't do the
right?
well.
Right.
So if they do wanna do them concurrently, if they come back for the well, they'd have to say how they're gonna
Right,
not get in each other's way.
right, but that's going to have to be in a meeting. That's not going to be a field discussion.
no,
No.
that would be an
No
amendment.
pun intended.
I understand. And that would be an amendment to the order.
Depending upon what's presented, we can't say that yes or no here.
It could be a minor
Are you
modification.
okay with that?
Right, but
Or it could be
without
an
knowing,
amendment. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
the discharge and what the
The
actual
volume.
test is, right?
Right,
So,
A minor mod would mean,
I understand.
basically, to do it, amended means you have to re-notify butters and all that stuff.
Mhm.
so but without,
Those
we
are
don't
different.
comment on something that's not presented. Okay. Commissioners have any other questions? Okay. So is it your request to close this evening?
Yes,
Okay. Do we have a motion to close this hearing?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions for DEP file number 204-882, 27 Fort Pond Hill Road.
Do we have a second?
Maybe, should we say it with the
yeah,
plans
so
Oh,
amended as
directly on the,
concrete?
Yeah,
On
without
the
the
material.
use of the plastic paver
okay, so
material.
concrete masonry unit,
So I'll say with the aforementioned concrete design as opposed to the plastic one that was submitted.
And that they come back in for the, well,
No, it doesn't matter. This,
It
it
doesn't
wasn't,
matter?
that wasn't,
oh,
it's not part of the motion. So,
I will make that part of the finding, though.
Right,
Not necessarily, yeah.
yeah, okay. And the plan will be stamped and updated, so that shows the concrete,
okay.
so.
okay, I'll
So,
second,
you seconded?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So when Amy receives the plan that has that, she'll then release that.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Clifton Avenue, so there's that.
What's that?
I've got to send around Clifton Avenue. There's two new.
Amy, I'm giving this back to you.
Yes, that's that for me.
Yep.
About to review this.
I do, so do you want?
Yeah, I need to keep the paper trail, so hang on to that, and then we'll get a final set. Do you think you're gonna get that this week, or?
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, 8:30, continued public hearing, Long Lake Beaver Dam Control, installation of a beaver deceiver.
Nobody?
No DEP number.
Oh.
I don't know what's wrong with DEP these days.
Jeez.
Sorry, Anna, not your division.
They've caught up with everything else, and this is the only one that's
My
haven't been all
contracting
busted
office.
out. So,
Okay, so we will continue that for another meeting. The next meeting of record will be March 25th, followed by April 8th, correct?
yep.
Okay. Anybody have anything, we went through all the discussion items, anything else?
So I think Julie and Anna want to get add to the vernal pool nighttime list?
Put me
Yeah.
on too.
Oh, okay.
Why don't you
fine.
just put all the commissioners on?
All right,
Yeah.
yeah.
That'd be
So,
great.
Part of a, be part of a list.
Yeah.
I know Carl wants to be there.
What's that?
Carl totally wants to.
Don't tell
What I
her.
wanna be?
At night, out at night in the rain.
I'll be
Chasing,
calling you in 15 minutes. Carl, I don't see you here yet.
chasing salamanders.
It'll be like a phone tree.
Come on.
Calling
Oh, there you
everybody.
go.
Where are you? Who's bringing the coffee?
Hey, just call me if you see them.
And send a picture.
Wait a minute.
Where's my flashlight? Okay, do I have a motion to close the hearing?
Sure.
Motion
I'll
to
motion
adjourn?
close the hearing.
Second?
At
Wow, 8:45.
Whoa.
Holy
Can
cow.
you believe it?
Super early. Whoa.
Anna, would you like to do your?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.